I'd love to start, but I thought maybe we could just give another 90 seconds to see if there's anybody in the parking lot. I did expect Miss Brady and Lori, so there's a few people working on parking. If you're willing to hold in there for a moment or two.
And I think Springo, did you just join?
Hello?
Spring O'Brien?
Yep, we're here.
Hi, Ashley. We're just about to get started, maybe another 60 seconds.
Perfect, sounds great.
They're all coming right. Full speed?
Yes.
Sir, how are you?
Pardon.
You're good.
Pardon me.
We just wanted to have you with us before we started. So.
Thank you. Pardon me.
Did you see one more, or I didn't want to start without Brady and Lori? But happy to do that. So, just a matter of housekeeping, folks. Just a matter of housekeeping. We're going to let Marilyn call us to order. But this meeting is being streamed live with the Granicus software, which the county uses as their normal practice for TDC meetings and BCC meetings. So microphones are above us, picking up our voices. Camera is on the opposite part of the room. It has a narrow field, so I'm actually not on camera, and y'all are probably not on camera, so the class clowns over there are a little bit safer than the rest of us. And as you saw on the first thing on the agenda is some sunshine refresher course. So that kind of goes to this meeting is available to the public, and what we say and do, of course, is available to the public. So with that, I am expecting 2 more arrivals, but we do have a quorum. So, Mr. Chairman, if you would like to call.
Okay.
Good.
No, should we just wait a minute?
Yes, absolutely. Hello.
Hi, Lori's right behind me.
Okay. Good to see you.
Happy New Year.
Yes, to you too. Hiya. Hey, come on in. How you doing, Lori? We're going to go, okay? Okay.
Okay. Well, welcome, and welcome back, everybody. It's good to see you. And we have some new faces, so let me call the meeting to order first, and then we'll make our introduction so everyone knows one another again. I would like to go ahead and start the meeting, and if there's, do you want to go ahead and, well, let's just introduce ourselves, okay? So Jim, would you begin, tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, my name is Jim Richard, and I own Word of Mouth Restaurant Group, and we have Stinky's Fish Camp here, and Trenas in New Orleans in the Intercontinental Hotel, and we're in about 5 days going to open Ceviche in Redfish Village.
And I might add on Jim's behalf, we are lucky that he is our designee from the TDC Council, continuing in that fashion, so we are glad to have you back.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
I'm Sarah Braswell. I am the Sales and Marketing Director for Santa Rosa Golf and Beach Club, just along 38 here. And thank you for letting me be on the committee this year. I'm excited to be here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stacy Brady. I'm Director of Marketing and Public Relations for Grand Boulevard. Also direct all of our wonderful events, some of which are signature South Walton events. This is my second term serving on this committee, and very happy to be here.
I'm Marilyn McCollum. I'm with Destination Management. We're a convention and meeting services company. We work with groups coming into town and to do entertainment, speakers, tours, airport meet and greet, transportation management, anything the group might need when they come into town. And I've been on the committee for 2 years.
Hi, I'm Tracy Walton, I'm representing New Daily Resort Properties, Director of Marketing and Communications there. I'm representing one of our bed tax collectors. I'm also very involved with a lot of local events in our community. And this is my second year serving.
Good afternoon, I'm Dan Kaiser, Sales and Marketing at Sandestin Golf and Beach Resorts. Second year serving on this group. I'm very excited about the new year and happy to be back on board again.
Like Dan, this is my second year to serve. I'm Richard Ross, the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at the Hilton Sandestin Golf Resort and Beach Resort. And again, very delighted and honored to be part of this esteemed group and happy to have a voice to represent not only the bed tax collectors, but our slice of paradise here in South Walton. So thank you.
I'm Sarah Bailey with Resort Classified Wyndham Vacation Rentals. I'm a marketing manager. It's my first year on this committee and I'm very excited to be here.
Well, I appreciate it. Let staff that are up here on the dais, because they do have responsibilities at this event.
I'm Carrie Safranek. I'm the communications coordinator at South Walton.
Hey y'all, Kelly Carter, marketing coordinator of Business South Walton.
And John River, of course, Director of Marketing Communications here. And again, one of the biggest honor in my role is that I get to sit in a room with folks of your stature who are willing to give some of their time. We went through this protocol and we're going to do a little sunshine training because we have 2 new members. So we're bringing the 2 Sarahs up to speed. And this is a 2-year appointment, and we certainly hope that those of you that served before are looking forward to 2 more years. But it's a great group. We also have added, beyond the video which we announced earlier, we've added Spring O'Brien, which is our PR firm out of New York, is on the phone today. They're going to hang through the Sunshine Training Refresher, because it's good for anybody who's within earshot, and then give us a brief update on the media mission that we're working on in February, and then we'll excuse them because account hours are few and far between, so we appreciate them being here with us. Would you like to tell us, Spring O'Brien, who you have on the phone today?
Yeah, hi, it's Lauren Kaufman. I'm a senior vice president here at Spring O'Brien. And I've been working on South Walton, the watercolor and launched some years ago. And we've been working with Business South Walton for the past 2 or so years. And you've got Ashley White, an account executive here at Spring O'Brien, and I joined the team in June of 2015.
Thank you very much, everybody. Mr. Chairman?
Okay, let's approve last month's or last meeting's minutes. There's any discussion? Any comments?
I was just surprised that I was printed out to this many pages. It was like, we ran late, and I was like, it's going to be pages, like, well,
This group has a tendency to ad-lib. We try not to kill too many trees with the ad-libs.
Other than that, did you see anything wrong?
I'll make a motion to approve minutes.
You have a second? All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, passes.
Okay, thank you. We did not afford you the cheat sheet on the agenda, but asking if there's any public comment on the agenda before we get into the actual items, it is appropriate, so if you'd be willing to do that, we'll so note.
For you folks in the audience, this is your time that you can tell us if you have any comments at this time. Feel free to voice anything at this point.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry to divert you. That takes you back to
new business.
Sunshine. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. John?
Yes. I'll introduce Clay Atkinson. He acts as legal counsel for the TDC and has given many of us the Sunshine Training Refresher a few times, so we're asking you to give us the abridged version of it today. You do have a loose leaf in front of you that's code of conduct that's pretty standard. By all means, if you have questions about it, we have the expert available, but we're hoping that you're comfortable enough after Clay assures you that you're not going to jail, that you'll be able to sign that and leave that with us today.
Thank you, John. As John said, my name is Clay Atkins, and I know a lot of you here, I think we've met at various times, and most of you, I think, have sat through this before. So I apologize that you're going to have to hear it again. But with that said, what we're talking about is Sunshine Law. And I think everybody has a general idea of what Sunshine Law is. The easiest way to think about it is that it is the public's right to an open government. Florida statutes codify that right. They say the public has an absolute right to be involved with its governmental decision process. That means if you just want to show up and listen to what your decision makers do, you have that right. You want to have a right to speak, so we allow public comment before and during agenda items. Sunshine Law is what says we can't do business outside of public side. Requires three things. Meeting has to be open to the public, has to have reasonable notice of the meeting date and time. We have to take the minutes. Well, the door's not locked. We take care of the notices here at staff level, and they're taking the minutes down right now, so none of y'all have to do anything, right? Makes it easy. I should sit down and just be done. Unfortunately, it's not that easy. The problem is, what is a meeting? A meeting is a meeting for any communication, interaction, discussion, email, social media exchange, or other exchange between two or more members of the same committee. So now's where you need to take a look around this table. You need to get familiar with everybody's name and face on your committee, because that's what the Sunshine Law says. Y'all can't be talking to things that could come before this committee outside of a formally noticed meeting. That's it. Really simple. Let me ask you this. We've got two new ones, the two Sarahs, I believe it is. I get to pick on y'all because everyone else has heard this, and I'm just going to feel very, very sad after I put on these 30-minute and sometimes 45-minute long presentations if somebody gets these questions wrong. So y'all two are my guinea pigs for that. Start over here. Sarah, who do you know on the TDC that's not in this room, to exclude you?
Who do I know that's
On the TDC.
That's not in this room?
Yep.
I don't know.
You know any of our TDC council members?
I feel like everyone I know at the TDC is in this room. I can't think of anyone off the top.
All right. Do you know Art Miller?
I don't.
Okay. Pam Aker?
I must be a bad pick. Sorry.
All right. Well, let's start with this. Jim's on our TDC council. Ultimately, what this board does is make recommendations to the TDC. You're a recommending body. If all you did was find facts, Sunshine would apply to. But because you make recommendations, even though they can reject those recommendations, you're governed by the Sunshine Law. That's the nature of an advisory committee. But ultimately, Jim there at the TDC is going to be making the final decision on that issue about when the TDC approves what you did. So can you go talk to Jim about one of these marketing proposals or grants we're considering?
I would not.
Why not?
I would make recommendations based on what you're saying.
But can you go talk to him about it?
Sure.
He's on the TDC.
You could talk to it, you just could make recommendations, right? Is that what you're getting
Can't talk to him. Can't talk to Jim at all because he's on your committee.
Okay.
Can't even talk to him. Hey, there's this great event. It's been up in South Carolina, and we're about to get it in South Walton. This is huge for us, whatever it may be. It's a wonderful idea, and you're the first person to know about it. It's a wonderful idea. You just got to tell everybody in the world about it. And the TDC needs to help sponsor. They need to get it down. You cannot bring that up if it could come before your committee to anybody here. That includes Jim, even though he's on the TDC.
So noted. Okay.
So you can't do that. What about you, Sarah? You know anybody on our TDC?
I think I know just everybody in this room.
Okay. These are our staff people. We're going to get to staff in a second. But we have a 9-member TDC council. Jim is one of those 9 members. Right now, our current county commission rep is Cecilia Jones, Tim Morris. We'll give you an entire list of these people's names.
Jennifer.
I do know one.
Okay. Well, let's take Jennifer since you know her.
Okay.
Can you talk to Jennifer about something that this committee is going to be dealing with?
Guess not,
Why not?
because that would break the Sunshine Law.
Is she on your committee?
No, but she's on the TDC board.
Do you serve on the TDC board?
No.
Only applies if you serve on the same committee.
And that's just with one person or with 2 people?
2 people or more cannot have
But I count as one of
communication.
the 2.
Yeah, you and her together will be two. So, again, look around the table. It's real simple. It's the eye test. Lay eyes on them in this room. They're on your committee. You cannot speak to them about things that happen. Can you go talk to the TDC members, except for Jim, about it? Absolutely. BCC members, Bill Enfield, Bill Chapman, Cecilia Jones, Sarah Commander, Cindy Meadows. I think most in this room probably know them or dealt with one or more of them. Can you talk to them? Seeing some head nods, yes, y'all been through this before. The answer is yes. They are not on your committee. Now, let's go to staff. Everybody knows staff. You know John, you know all these people back here, me. Can you talk to us?
Yes.
Yes.
What about John? He's sitting at the table with you.
Oh, not him.
No,
Not me.
you can. It's okay.
Okay, so they don't, this section doesn't count?
That's right. It is only. John doesn't count. Sorry, John. I did that to Brian this morning, and Brian looked at me like I just hurt his feelings.
It's not the first time I've heard that.
I told John that for years, so he's used to it for me. So, no, staff does not count. Stan Sunday's our interim director of the TDC. Mr. Bagby, when he was here, I used him as an example. Those are the people you should be talking to about what's coming before your committee. They're the people who are going to give you the information you need to know, and if you don't have enough, they're the ones who should go get it for you. That's their job. You can talk to staff about anything that can come before your committee. You talk to county staff, you talk to me. It is only the members of your committee that you can't talk to. And I keep using that word talk, and it's something I've had to work on in this presentation because nowadays, talk isn't the big issue. Most people understand that. Most people, once they figure out, hey, I can't talk to somebody else in this committee about something that's coming up. Grand Boulevard's putting on some big event. It's going to be wonderful. It'll draw in 50,000 people over a weekend, maybe 100,000 people. It's going to put heads in beds. Greatest event we've ever seen. Can you go talk to Stacy about that if they're applying for a marketing grant here through the TDC?
No.
That's right. It does not matter that she has that dual role of being with the Howard Group and down at Grand Boulevard. It matters that y'all are on the same committee, and the issue could come before your committee. So that's what you need to be careful about. Now, what happens if you violate the sunshine law? This is the scary part. You are subject to criminal prosecution. It is a first-degree misdemeanor. That means you can go to jail for up to 1 year. I have people tell me all the time that never happens. Go ask W.D. Childers, Pensacola, Escambia County. Go ask Willie Jr. There's the county commissioners over there who did get prosecuted for that. There's a whole list of people I can give you who you would know from Miami who not only committed sunshine law violations, but they did went so far beyond that they got prosecuted for honest services fraud in federal court. They're serving a lot longer than 1 year in jail. You can also be fined, as the Crestview City Council was, up to $500 as a civil penalty if somebody determines you violated the sunshine law even though you didn't mean to do it. Well, it wasn't criminal. They didn't mean to do it, but they sure enough did. But more importantly, this committee doesn't always matter as much for some committees, such as destination improvements. But in these committees, you're making recommendations about which projects should receive our sponsorship and funding. They're dealing with money. Why sunshine law matters and not violating it is, one of the remedies is that the award or the action you take, if sunshine violations preceded that, can be set aside. The example I use that I'm sure attorneys over in Duval and Jacksonville wish the state would forget is the issue of the Jacksonville International Airport. Anybody flown internationally out of Jacksonville ever? Anybody flown out of Jacksonville ever, out of curiosity? Not one of the big airports in the state. In the early 80s, Jacksonville received over $30 million in FAA grant money. In 1981, that's a lot of money. They were going to put an international airport in Jacksonville. It was a port, it was going to be a big deal. At that time, it would have been the largest airport probably in the state. It was scaled to be roughly the size Orlando is now. This is in the 80s, I'm talking about. Went through the bid process, got a very known, nationally established builder to come in, bid it. 2 members of the authority set up for this, met with the builder after they were selected as the top bidder to discuss their bid and what they want to see in terms of the finishes and what this would look like. The bid was revised, was approved. The low bidder said, now wait a minute, why'd they revise this bid? didn't matter that they were still a little bitter. They challenged it. They went to court. And they said, we understand that 2 members of this board that ultimately approved that contract met with that contractor and talked about it. That's a violation of sunshine law. You're in the same room together, they talk about something that's coming before the board. Ultimately, a court in the state of Florida agreed. Contract was void ab initio, is the legal phrase. That means it was void on its face and was never valid. Because the contract was not valid, issued within the time, the FAA said, thank you, we'll take all of our money back. It's a $30 million setback. We're not giving that kind of money away at the TDC. But I remind you, if we give a signature event, and we're talking about $25,000, $50,000 we're giving to get an event here at Walton, market it, and that's going to help bring an event here or sustain an event that we really want. The last thing we need is an event that did not get funding, complaining they didn't get the money because Marilyn and Tracy had lunch and talked to that other applicant and made the decision that was a better one, and they made that decision outside a public meeting, and now we lose it. The other side is the county gets its attorney's fees. Somebody sues us, they win, we have to pay their attorney's fees. Awards typically go up around $100,000. The most recent have been in the neighborhood of $200,000 and $300,000 awards, even when the government has come in and said, you're right, we messed up. A lot of money. Don't want to cost the county that kind of money. Don't want to take that money out of TDC. Y'all know how much we can do with $200,000 in marketing. Think about it in terms of your own business. Think about what the TDC can do, how many events we can help market, how much we can promote, how much we can do for this area. We don't want to pay somebody like me to sue the county because 2 people had a conversation that shouldn't have. Now, here's the thing. I don't think anybody here is going to go sit down. I don't think 2 senators are going to leave here today or the next meeting, get together, sit down and say, hey, look, this is the event we need to fund. This is number 1 on our priority list. Let's go make it happen. I don't think no matter how important Stacy feels about her job or her events that our group puts on their Grand Boulevard, that she's going to go lobby to get it done. I trust that that level of misconduct is not going to happen. It usually doesn't. But the problem is, it's not just about having that sit-down conversation sometimes. I do want you to be mindful that you all know each other outside of this room in large part, I expect. You may meet with each other in social settings. That is not prohibited. The Attorney General is abundantly clear. Social gatherings, members of the same board are perfectly okay. Just please be mindful of the appearance that may have. So much never ask, well, what are we going to talk about? Just be careful about it. But where people do have a problem, and I deal with it a month, and I'm not exaggerating, that's probably with every governmental board I represent, I have to send out one of these emails at some point in time, and usually pretty often. You get an email from staff, tells you something about what's coming before the committee, and every one of you are CC'd on it. And you just have to make a comment. It's wonderful. Now reply. Or maybe your email set that reply function is automatically reply off. Or maybe you accidentally click reply off. Or maybe you don't know the difference between the two. Maybe you just do it, which I have a lot of my board members occasionally make that mistake of when they're not familiar with email. And your email goes out to the entire board, and you now talk about some project. Talking about something, you've given an opinion. That is a sunshine law violation. It's inadvertent. But when you do that, expect a little note back from staff, hey, watch out for sunshine purposes. We'll make that a part of the record. We'll disclose it at the next meeting. We will cure any violation that may have occurred. But please be mindful of that. One of the best examples I've given is well-intentioned. Happened with our TDC here in Walton County. An email was sent out talking about the need when we were going through the branding process. When Visit South Walton became the brand. Back during the VP was spent, we had all that money to spend doing the brand, and of course, came up with that one logo, or where we are today. But the idea was we needed a defined mark, something I'm sure you can all agree with that differentiates this area from Destin. Now, how we do that, your policy issues, not mine, I'm not going to get into that. But I think everybody pretty well agreed, we aren't destined, we can't be destined, we don't want to be destined, we don't want to be called destined, and we don't want people calling our businesses destined businesses. It's horrible for our local economy if people think they're in Destin and choose to stay in Destin if they're searching those areas. And that was something that was going on, and we shot out some brand recognition data about some major strides we made on the first times. one of our board members from the TDC reply all. Look at the latest Best in Destin. 32 businesses, I believe it was, of which 17 winners are located in Walton County, not inclusive. It's true. We need to go to these businesses and make sure they're not advertising themselves as Destin. This is the exact type of thing we have to prohibit. Let them be the fools who say their businesses are in Destin, but we can't have it. We need to promote it. Very good point. Most people would agree with it. But it went to every other member of the TDC. It's absolutely talking about an issue that was coming up at that meeting because that was the agenda item they just saw. And making matters worse, one of our other board members followed up with another reply on, I completely agree with that. Heck, it happens. We have to be careful about it. Now, the other side, the email stuff, I usually get called on because I'm on most of those emails that send out these bulletins, so I can usually figure that out for you. Social media is the harm. Who in here has Facebook? Twitter? Instagram? Anything at all? Exactly. How many of you think you might have a Facebook friend at that table? Maybe it's just for business. Probably. So what happens when you post a message on your Facebook page that might have something to do with something that's coming before this committee? Anybody see a problem with that? I hope you do. Because the problem is, you've now made a comment that is not, by those three standards, in a public meeting that was noticed and has minutes taken. I told the Destination Beach Committee this morning that in my most recent CLE, an argument was advanced about that in a court in Central Florida. And the argument was, now wait a minute, it's out there. If my Facebook was set to fully public settings, everybody in the world can see it. They don't just have to be my friend. So it was not a direct message communication. If you send a text to somebody, that's as bad as picking up the phone and calling them or meeting with them in the back room. We all get that out of it. But what about that generalized blast that goes out to a select group? Some of that was published for everybody to see. The court said, well, that's not really the law, but okay, I'll let you entertain that point. They said, well, it's the same thing as having minutes, because it's right there in writing. Everybody can read it. It's not like there's any communication beyond that. The court said, fair enough. Where was it noticed? Who knew you were going to make that post about an item coming before the county commission at 8:57 p.m. on a Thursday night? You don't have board meetings that night. I don't see anybody who noticed it. Did you warn somebody? And how long did you warn that was going to happen? So the other thing the court said was, I reject the other two arguments on the face, that even if there were merit to those, it is not in the spirit of the Sunshine Law, because not everyone has Facebook. Not everyone has access to that, and you cannot expect the public to find alternative means of learning about what their government's doing. The government does business in a certain way, and we're expected to do it. It's in a room like this, in a meeting like this. If you do something different than that, you have to take every possible precaution to let the public know that well in advance. So be mindful of that. Now here's where all of you marketing professionals think, oh my gosh, I've got a problem. I'm going to do marketing blast. Who knows who on that list is going to get it. Just be mindful of what you personally are sending and to who it goes to, and the members of this committee. Just be mindful of that. If it appears to be an endorsement or something that is talking about, showing favoritism to, showing disfavoritism, showing a desire to not have something come here, showing a desire to have something come here, if it could come before this committee, you need to be careful about who that's transmitted to. Because the last thing we want is for them to say, well, they're all on this one little chain that gets all these little marketing blasts. You're going to use Constant Contact, and it does it for you. You don't even pay attention to it. But it came from Tracy's email address, and it darn sure ended up in Dan and Richard's email, but it didn't end up in mine because I'm not on that list. Is that what the law really expects of us? All I can tell you is while I think we could have some arguments against problems like that, especially when dealing with marketing professionals and business relationships, I don't have to make that argument for you in court. And more importantly, if you are accused of some of these violations, it is entirely possible you lose the right to have a government attorney represent you in the government's matter. And since this committee pays so well You may not mind paying all that money you get this committee to an attorney. The attorney's gonna say, yeah, that zero check is how I'm doing business. So don't put yourself in that position is what I'm suggesting. Next issue I'm gonna talk to you about, and then we'll wrap up question at the end if anybody has it. Public records. This is the easiest thing to do. It really is. A public record is anything made or received in connection with official county business. So anything that relates to what you're doing here with the TDC Marketing Committee today or at any other point in time is a public record. So what happens when somebody sends you an email? Hey, do you think I can possibly get some grant money for my event? I know you're on that committee, it needs some help. It's public record. Public records are all about retaining the records so that if they're ever requested, they can be produced. It is about having a complete record of what has gone into the governmental decision-making process and governmental action. You do not have a Visit South Walton email address, by and large. You don't want one, probably. Everyone wants another email to deal with. So, you're going to use your personals. If you get those kind of communications by email, forward them to John, or whoever John tells you is his designee on staff to receive it. Because as soon as that email hits the Visit South Walton address, it is archived on the county server and we're taking responsibility for it. If you reply to them, make sure staff is CC'd. Your text messages, print them out. Social media postings, print them out. Make sure our staff gets anything related to your work on this committee so that we have a copy of it. Yes, the law says you have to maintain it. But as I've had to argue before, if we see a stack of records where you have CC'd everything religiously into the county account, and they produce one or two documents that you didn't, the court's more likely to accept that was an oops, an inadvertent omission rather than a criminal act. That's going to help each of you and help the TDC in the long run. You're going to get the benefit of that. If that stack over here, what you get includes this high, unfortunately, as I've also seen, the stack that was CC'd in was about that high. You know, 30,000 something emails and 20 of them didn't touch the county server. You got a problem. So why aren't you doing it? The other side is nobody wants to have to just sit down and go through all of their emails with me or a TDC member where we're looking through saying, that's business, we got to take that one, that's business, we got to take that one. Let me read this one and see what it is. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. And you think that's not possible? Let me tell you something. The former executive director, Mr. Bagg, who's here, had to go through that exact process on request for all emails on their account. They'd use their work account to also send general, hey, what time are we meeting? It could be a non-TDC related event. Or their spouse emails, hey, what time's dinner? Well, just to figure out which ones weren't and were not, they sit down with two attorneys from the county. I was one of those. 8 hours for 2 days, we do every single email. I didn't like it. They didn't like it, but that's what happens. A former county administrator of ours would do the same thing. And it is one of those things where when you're talking about what restaurant you don't want to go to because it wasn't very good last time, I don't think anybody wants that out there. And I'm serious, that's one of those emails. Do I have to release that one? Well, no. It was, in that case, it was private. It was not, but it was on the county email server. So we had to go through and screen them. So there are reasons you want to be careful, make sure you send everything you can to the staff so that we feel like we've got a complete record of what you have received, what you have sent, what you have done. Last note on public records. Take notes of these meetings. Those are public records. If you do that, make sure staff gets a copy of them, scan them in it yourself, send them back in to staff, let them get a copy of them after the meeting. We need a copy of them, or you're gonna, you can maintain them. It can be left up to you. We as the county will be glad to leave it up to you. You're on your own if somebody asks for them, you don't produce them because you actually have to through them. Don't want that. The other side is, just a general word of caution, you do not want to put something down on paper that you wouldn't want someone to see. I had a city council member write down, what an asshole, referring to a presenter. And lo and behold, we got our meeting the next day. They take a lot of notes about presentation. I want that sheet. And they had to produce it. And they're at the next meeting. Tell me why you said I was an asshole. To that council member's credit, they looked at it and said, sir, that was probably the nicest thing I could have written. Actually, if I'd written the rest of it, we'd have a whole lot of problem. So, to their credit, they didn't care. But, as virtually everyone here has their own businesses, has their own associations, relationships outside of this, we probably don't want that. So don't think you can just write down a quick little note to yourself. It might be misconstrued, it may mean something else, it may not be that flagrant. As I tell people, the other side of it is, it did not happen here, and I'm glad I did not have this case, or the case where two council members were passing notes back and forth. And had the wisdom to realize we may have violated sunshine law when we went too far with some of our little running commentary here. And this is over in Jacksonville, Nassau County area. And they turned them in and said, hey, we got to give them to you. They gave them their county attorney. And lo and behold, these two gentlemen had made some comments that neither of their wives found very appropriate about a female presenter that was before them that night. So again, that's contentions, even turning them in. Things can go bad. So just be mindful of what notes you take and what you write down, because you're not in private business right now. You're part of the government. And so we have in Florida the broadest public records laws of the entire state, of the entire nation, excuse me. Our state is a pioneer on this. Some people would say it's going too far. That's a policy question the legislature determined. What I'm going to tell you is the legislature made it abundantly clear. The public has a right not just to be present, but also to be heard at meetings. Bear that in mind. If you're doing anything that keeps the public out of that, you're going to pay that price. Lastly, you've got a code of conduct coming up in here. I'll wrap this up for you now on my part of this. The code of conduct is general rules to go over that we have adopted. You have a code of ethics that you abide by in the state of Florida. I think everybody here knows, or I would hope would know, do not vote on something that will benefit you or your employers or your family members. That's pretty straightforward. That's a conflict of interest. If you are doing business, or you have a business that is going to be doing repeated business with TDC, we need to talk about that. We try to screen for that to avoid that. But simple way is to recuse yourself. There are proper forms to fill out. If you have questions about whether something is a conflict of interest, ask in advance. If I cannot answer it, or my answer is not to your satisfaction, we'll go all the way to the Florida Commission on Ethics, and we'll get them to write your opinion, but we're more than happy to. That's their job, and those are binding opinions. You get that in advance, you are protected and covered if someone complains about it later. The only note I'll make separate from the code of conduct, because since we have implemented this, there's not been a single board that has signed these that I might have had somebody come ask me this question. It's in effect for our TDC, it's in effect for you as well. That's the provision that we don't want after the meetings, you going out on your own and making comments that may be of a disparaging nature about the committee's action. No, wait, I have a First Amendment right to free speech. Please, why can't I say what I want? What we're asking of you is not to check your free speech right completely, but to respect the process. You're a governmental board. We operate pretty close to Robert's Rules of Order. The board's going to vote. You're going to have a chance to say everything you want to say in these meetings. I can assure you that. And you'll have a chance to vote your way. At the end of the day, you're making a recommendation to the TDC. The committee's recommendation is what goes up. It is not Sarah's recommendation or Lori's recommendation or Dan's recommendation. It's the recommendation of the committee. When you sign up to be on one of these committees, or you get elected to public office, or you're appointed to the TDC, to some degree, you have to respect the institution that is the board you serve. Does that mean you can't disagree in here and fight with each other in here? But it's about civility. The other side is that I do remind my appointed board members, you are not elected. Does that mean you're something lesser than them? No, not at all. But when someone's elected to office, they're in a different capacity than an appointed board member. The public has elected them, they have constituents they serve. They have that specific role. But when our elected officials appoint you to this, you're serving them. Yes, you're serving the public at large on behalf of them, but you're serving them first and foremost. You're advising them. So understand, what we're asking for there is not silence and obedience and us all in lockstep. We're asking that if you just don't agree with what the committee did, don't go out there and just blast and rip the committee, because I can tell you something. Enough of you have been here a long time. These committees used to be a very common thing for our TDC. My mother only served on one with Mr. Bagley well before he was ever our TDC director, years ago. And ultimately, some of those committees were deemed to not be being very effective. They were being forums, they were being derisive towards each other, towards the TDC, towards the PCC. Everybody had their own agendas. And it was decided those need to be done away with, and we're going to go to a workshop structure. Mr. Bagley came here, he identified something along with our staff as a whole, and I think John and our staff would tell you. One of the problems that we realized out of that was that the TDC lost a direct connection with our public stakeholders. The people who do want to volunteer and be involved. They can't just show up at workshops where nothing's happening. People who want to serve on these committees, you care to be here and you got a stakeholder interest now because you're making these recommendations. That's a valuable part of one, public education on what we do at TDC and what the TDC does for the county. Two, it's a valuable part for the entire bed tax and tourism community, as well as the public and residents here in Walton County. So what we're asking is to be mindful that these committees were brought back with that goal in mind. And arguing that a member of your committee just doesn't know what they're talking about, as we've had said at board meetings before, years ago, doesn't advance the goals of what this committee is or what you're doing. So please understand, we're not telling you we don't want to hear from you, but say your piece in here. And don't get out there afterwards and make it a political grandstand, because we're looking for progress in these committees. You're aware, we hopefully are removing the politicized aspect of this job. So beyond that, I'm open to any questions anybody has. I'm always available for any questions anybody has, today or later. Get with staff, email me directly, call me. If I don't have the answer, I'll get it for you, I promise. Appreciate your time, and I'll refer to any questions the board has.
Yes, sir. That was a very good message, thank you. What about a company, or if I have ownership in a company and it is marketing on the social media platform and talking about things that this board will vote on? And it's not my personal, but it is my company. Where is the line drawn?
That's a good question. The issue that has been addressed there is no direct case law or attorney general opinion on it. But the issue has been generally viewed as if you're not the one doing it, then it's impossible to say you're the direct one making that statement. It's no different than if a Walton County staff member makes a statement to the press about something that's coming up, and so I say, well, that was meant to be a message to all of the board members. Probably not going to get you in trouble. Just be mindful of that. What I would do in that scenario is I would make sure I have a good archiving program for what we do in social media in my business, to make sure that if somebody ever raises this question, you can go back and show, hey, this is what was said. It was employed by me to do at the time. It wasn't my word. I can document. I wasn't trying to send a message out to these people. You can do that. You're probably going to be okay. The real concern, again, is are you doing something that removes the decision-making process from the public eye? So I'm giving you the most conservative approach because, again, all I can do is give you my theory. I'm not the man who wears the robe. The man who wears the robe will make that decision. We hope he decides the way I like him to, but I can't always guarantee that. And since I can't guarantee it, I can give you the best word of caution to keep us from getting it.
And I can be a little bit more specific. I'm on the board of the South Walton Artificial Reef Association. Right. I've supported, I'm on the board, I raised money for it. I should probably abstain from voting on anything related in this room. I could give comment.
Do you derive any money from sport?
Do I derive any money from it? Personally, no, sir.
Okay. As far as that you're a board member, you're not an employee, correct?
Correct.
You don't have any contracts with them?
No, sir.
In that case, board member representation, no, I don't find that to be an issue. I don't believe, we've had this with the TDC, I'll give you a great example. South Walton Fire District, our board members always want to recuse themselves whenever their contract comes up. The law says a conflict of interest is a vote that would inure to your or a business associate's or a relative's special private gain or loss. Literally, you can't vote on something that would hurt yourself. If you do, you're going to be in trouble. It's crazy, but it's the law. And so the question is, Are they a business associate of yours? Typically, boards for not-for-profit entities that do not receive pay do not fall in the business associate category. And more importantly, the decision would not benefit you because you're simply, you don't receive any benefit from that organization. Now, paid salary, or whether you receive a benefit or retirement pay, a health stipend, that changes the equation. You don't get anything for your service, probably not.
Thank you.
Would you mind giving us contact information?
Sure, absolutely.
For future?
My email is Clay, C-L-A-Y, my first name, @Atkinson Law. My last name is A-D, there's a typo on the agenda, not T, A-D, KINSONLAW.com. Clay@AtkinsonLaw.com. My direct office line is 850-892-5195. My cell phone. Probably shouldn't give that in a public meeting. So, bottom line is, if you call my office, though, as I tell every one of my clients, I say that as a joke, more than anything. If you call my office, I'm not available. Leave your name and number for my secretary. Email me all my messages. I can return those calls. Let them know what it's about. Let them know, hey, I'm on the TDC committee, got a question. They'll do that. The other thing to do, if it's a very pressing matter and you know you need an answer immediately, you call my office, I'm not in, you shoot me an email, you don't get an immediate response. Ask my office to schedule you a phone conference with me. They'll tell you how quickly they can get you a phone conference with me, okay? The other side is reach out to staff. Always reach out to your staff as well. So, no, that way, that helps me manage, and that helps you get in touch with me, and that's the easiest way to do it. Honestly, email questions are probably the easiest thing to do, because even if I can't give you a concise email response, because I'm a lawyer, I don't know how to give concise responses to anything, including presentations like this, I at least can look over what your issue is, research, and get you the right answer. So email is by far the best way to answer these questions, because then you have a record of it as well. So if there's somebody who says, well, wait a minute, did you ever check into that? Yeah, I emailed the attorney. That lazy SOB didn't get back to me. So what was I supposed to do? Or here was his response. You're covered that way. So you will find, like most attorneys, I believe, documenting things in writing is the best thing. You just got to issue a talk through, please. Feel free to talk as well. Anything else? All right, I'll let y'all get back to real business. I know you got a lot of stuff. Sorry for the time this afternoon. Pleasure seeing all of you.
Thank you, we appreciate it. All right, so appreciate Spring O'Brien sitting to the phone, but again, we get to share a little of our joy with you and our day-to-day lives here. If you could provide a very brief update on our upcoming media mission, we sure would appreciate it.
Absolutely. So Visit South Walton executives will be visiting our turf on the East Coast from February 9th to the 11th for the Visit Florida New York City Consumer Media Reception, which takes place on the evening of February 10th. Spring O'Brien will be assisting with the media mission by securing desk side appointments with key target media in the New York City area. So we have developed a comprehensive media list of top publications and writers in the area, and we distributed an initial meeting invitation just before the holidays. And then this week we're conducting extensive follow-up via email and also phone calls to lock in dates and times for those appointments. And the purpose of these meetings primarily is to raise awareness of the destination among our target outlets so that South Walton is top of mind for editorial coverage. And then we also are aiming to educate some of the editors on the area's unique offerings and what they can expect from the destination in the upcoming year. So we're full steam ahead there, pitching and securing appointments, and should have an update by this week.
And we don't have yet, but Visit Florida will be publishing their attendee list, and in the past it's been a couple of dozen of major brands, and we're only one of 15, I think, one of 15 or 18 entities in the room. So it's a very high-profile opportunity to talk to these major media. So we're going to do both while we're there as our desk side blitz, and we're lucky enough to be one of the brands that Visit Florida is presenting.
Is there anything the committee can do to support these efforts in terms of, newsworthy stories, content, so that, again, we're able to secure the best desk sites and...
We are fortunate that we're also exploiting our marketing firm, Zender, to any place that we had paid placements. We have asked those reps to feed us to the editorial reps. We do respect the boundary, so we've done that. We probably will make a push out to this committee, and then there's a couple of you that might actually be able to help. I know just a happenstance conversation with Lori. They have a wine label that's very representative of lifestyle here, and so we're working on, just at this point it's drafted, but a South Walton sampler, a little bit of a lifestyle care package. And so when we are able to connect to these media, that we'll have some stuff basically waiting to push the button on it to go to their office. And as in, in New York, that's a little bit of a high security gauntlet, but we're going to have some nice stuff that'll be able to drive home the brand, along with story starters, what's new, and backgrounders.
These videos are great too.
The videos is a perfect use for that. If you don't know us, why wouldn't you fall in love if you even watch just a couple of minutes of that? So, yeah, the holidays.
We're always in need of information from you guys. You're on the ground, you know what's happening in your particular places best. So if you have anything that you think would be newsworthy for the larger South Walton story, we would love to get on all of your press release lists, or just drop us a line if you have something new or interesting that you think we could leverage, here in New York and also nationally for our other outreach.
And I would say back at you if there's any particular trends that you're following or things that you think they belong onto. I mean, as you all know, I did this for many, many years. The first thing they say when you sit down is, what's new, what's going on, what's edgy. That's what's going to catch their attention. That's what's going to move the needle for us. So we'd love to partner with you on that. And again, any trends that you're following or think are really big for 2016, maybe we can help dig up some things where South Walton fits into that.
Absolutely. That's Tracy. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, your insights are valuable to us. So, we were more than happy to engage in that dialogue on an ongoing basis.
Absolutely. It's a great opportunity, and thank you very much for spearheading that. It's great.
Where do we send press releases? This is Lori. Where do we send?
Carrie is your staff liaison for all of that, so she's back and forth with that office to make sure we're streamlined as we can be constantly.
Thank you.
All right, thanks guys for hanging in there with us, and we're trying to make this a regular, and most meetings don't start with a 45-minute orientation, so next time it'll probably be a little more efficient for you, so we appreciate you.
No worries, it was enlightening.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Have a good meeting. Thanks. Bye.
Okay, next on the agenda, there's a little community relations, sorry.
That's the one, Dan.
This one you got it. Thank you.
There you go.
Just in case. Just in case. A little community relations overview, and this is not meant to take any official steps, but it's something that I wanted to make sure that you had, and really sort of just testing the waters a little bit if you have any thoughts. This has been, I think, for everybody in the world these days, fact distribution is hard. My favorite report for 2016, the epidemic that we're all facing is fact-resistant people. So I know a few people who are sick with that, and I don't know what the cure is, but this is one thing that we just asked ourselves, what do we really want to do as an organization? What are we finding to be difficult? It's the same thing that's difficult for everybody. Probably most important to me is what's ongoing. So sometimes when you're struggling, it's like, well, clearly you're not doing anything. We're doing quite a few things, and I'm proud of this team and Spring O'Brien and the effort of staff. So we shared that because that's as important as anything when you're trying to figure out what you might do different, what you might do. So we talked about opportunities and tools that you might need to be able to use different channels, different methods. I'm a big fan of actually thinking about coordinating varying the delivery each time. Because I think the Connections is a great tool that goes out 51 weeks a year, but I'm not sure after you've seen it 51 times that you're really reading it in depth. And so I think part of communications in this day and age is changing the delivery a little bit, and whether that's a video sizzle, whether that's a factoid page, whether that's a radio interview, I think that can be part of it. So we just wanted to share this with this WISE group to see if somebody said, oh, you know, the magic bullet is, or you should do twice as much of X. Any thoughts that you might have. Again, it's something that you can always follow up with us at a later date, because it's a lot to digest. We try to send it to you a week at a time, but we know the holidays made this one particularly hard with read-aheads. So
I think what your challenges is, I think that the community, the bed tax collectors, people at these tables, I mean, we look forward to getting the connection. We're engaged, we're reading it. I think the challenge is how do you get to the rest of the community who doesn't understand their connection with you, who, again, is listening to their neighbor versus maybe an expert resource. And so I don't know, you know, I immediately think of word of mouth and peer-to-peer, and how do you get deeper into the community, touching people in ways that matter to them. So if, I don't know, I'm somebody in Inlet Beach and I have a concern about the, you know, how tourism is impacting that and bettering that. I don't have all the answers or the vehicle methods, but I think it's reaching those people in different ways. I think the connection is great for a particular audience.
it is, and it's an opt-in audience, but
Yes.
it's not a populace. So
Right.
the good news is we just wanted you to know at least what is ongoing. We think there's value in all of that, or we would have already given up on it. And I am proud of the things like the Perfect in South Walton Awards. And you say, what does that have to do with community relations? Well, you know, sometimes the best way to get a message out is to package it in a smile and a pat on the back and a thank you. So you're seeing in everything that we're doing with that, incorporate that as an indirect message. And it's only in its second year. So this is a good time to introduce you to a face that you probably don't know in the audience. Gayla Schaefer sitting in the front row. And this is day 2 for Gayla. She is our community relations coordinator. And she's been in the area about a year. And so we're trying not to overwhelm her in the first 2 weeks, but she's getting to shadow and do a lot of stuff. So she'll be making connections as some of her predecessors have done and looking to advance that, and we're very excited to welcome her to the team.
Welcome aboard.
Thanks, Gayla. So again, please, you guys know, and we don't do as much of it as I honestly would like, is afterthoughts and follow-up, and I had an idea that came to me, but please, you know, share that stuff. And as you're having epiphanies at your desk, think of your friends over here at your TDC. Next item on the agenda is water towers. So actually I have to say it's my fault, 2 TDC meetings ago, one of the members asked where we have the water towers, and I promised an update, and then was reminded at the last one that I hadn't done that yet. So I did a little bit of preliminary digging, but I thought this was a good place to have a conversation before we get too far down the road. Those of you, I think, know that it was approximately 3.5, 4 years, 4 years, maybe more now, that the new script was placed in several prominent areas. The ground tank that is north of us here with regional utilities is fairly substantial and large. However, I will say that natural landscaping is steadily obscuring that, so I don't know if that would be considered a very high visibility at this point. Sandestin Water Tower, which many of you see on a regular basis, is still script, and the Inlet Beach one had been painted over. I believe it is just blank white at this point. I think you're all familiar with our region and that it is somewhat customary to brand through this method because of its high visibility. And there was a lot of confusion, and I still have some answers that I'm looking for. The sticker shock for the Sandestin one is pretty substantial. You're talking about $144,000 to do that. And I think most people thought, and I did as well, that that was a 10-year buy And, you know, we won't have to face this issue again, so it made everybody very hesitant. What do we do about the thing that we paid for that exists for 10 years, which is another reason it's sitting where it is. From what I could tell in the documentation, a repaint of this was estimated to be $14,000 after the expected 10 years went by. So I think that it's fair to ask some more questions. If we were to paint this, you know, could it be something less than $144,000 and a little bit more tolerable number? However, as I tried to briefly summarize here, that was talking about repainting the live space, if you will. And as those of you know that tower, the background color that's from top to bottom probably doesn't meet very many brand standards of anyone that I can think of. So, curious what your reactions are, and I can imagine that citizens have don't care, leave it where it is, doesn't make any difference to me. I know there's some people that say you have to get rid of that old mark, and there's a million positions probably in between, but it's pretty important, I think, to this organization and this destination to hear maybe some impressions from y'all, which then we would be able to share when we go forward about, it's not a budgeted project right now. And again, I think because everybody thought that was a $144,000 decision, it might be something less than that. And this was also not phrased in what I could find as though it's an annual payment. It was an agreement to allow the watercolor to be paid, and it was a payment for it being improved as a homeland security issue because of rules that are in place for obvious reasons, because it is a public utility. You're talking about the public's consumption of water, so very restrictive on who can do this work. But there's not a year-to-year payment being made for the right to be on the water tower, which I think is somewhat inviting, perhaps. So, anybody have thought, guidance, opinion about its existence, future?
Can I just clarify?
Yes, ma'am.
Hearing? So there are two water towers. There's the one north of
On the
here,
ground
and then
over
there's
here, it's
the
a
one
ground tank.
in Sandestin.
And the big one,
Okay.
yes, ma'am.
And that both of those were painted in when?
Approximately 2011, early 12.
So definitely not 10 years ago.
No, ma'am.
And so at that time, the understanding was just to repaint, to like refresh it, it would cost $14,000?
In writing, as part of this documentation, it states that if in 10 years, that's how long they think the treatment could last, if it was needing to be done again, the logo was needing to be done again, that they were estimating about $14,000.
So that's just the logo part on there.
But from a brand standards team, it's not a matter of just going up there and repainting that live space with the new one. It's a little more complicated. But okay, so it's 3 times more complicated. Does that mean it's a $45,000 decision? I think all these things are a little bit easier to talk about than 144. But the flip side, to be clear, if it was up to me, you wouldn't have this somewhat unpleasant background color from top to bottom. You'd have something that's brand standard. So now you're back to a full consideration, potentially. Yes, ma'am.
What is this background color? Is it beige?
I would describe it as a vomit-colored beige, if you ask me. That's how much I love it. Taupe! Oh, it's a taupe. I'm so sorry.
Well, realistically, if you're gonna change the logo, you're going to have to repaint the entire tower.
Unless you were going to put a background panel, you know, a I wouldn't have a good solution for you, honestly.
Like a white square with...
Does it need to go out for RFP? What's the action? Does it need to be put to the TDC to?
This would be a sole source job because of Homeland Security. There's only one person that's licensed to paint this. Just to mention, however, it doesn't mean that you couldn't just paint the globe portion and the stem and base, for no better term, could remain a color. So that's a cost savings. But, you know, again, how far are you going to go? Or not at all? We're looking for
Me personally, I'm so conservative, that's just my nature, is to say, wait until the tower needs the refresh and repainting, and then you can do the whole, you budget, you plan for the $144,000, and then we repaint the whole tower and a new logo and rebrand it. And I mean, good news, bad news.
at that size, you can read that it says South Walton. Well, you know, how successful. The other part of that is that we talk a lot about in-market branding, and, you know, that is a really good, easy, you know, place for that. We've talked about billboards in here and the amount of money we would be willing to spend on that, and that's like a billboard, you know.
South Walton.
I still think it's hard to read that logo. I don't care how big it is, I think it's hard to read it.
What did the 144,500 include, and what was that?
That was painting of the Sandestin water tower, top to bottom, with the taupe color and the logo, with electrostatic resistant paint done by a firm that's licensed by Homeland Security, etc. 2-brand color for the script.
Okay.
So that's just painting cost.
So why would you think that 4 years later it's going to be less money to redo it?
Just because of what the contract indicated, that if we wanted to repaint this, they were
Just that?
just that, they were offering that might be as much as 14,000, give or take.
Is it also on the other side of the globe?
Yes. And again, I would have to say the documentation that I could find was fairly light, which is why I'm trying to piece together where we sit today.
Well, I was looking at the Destin one, and it's, you know, you could consider a panel going clear around, a light, whatever's acceptable, and leave the beige on the top and the bottom.
And I'm just going to make something up. I think that's a legitimate conversation. If you own the globe and you rebrand the globe's colors and you have a neutral colored base, but if that's 70,000, just making stuff up.
Yeah.
If that's 70,000, does not doing the whole thing for 144, is that a hard decision? You know, to ask yourselves that. And listen, I think if I err, I probably err on fiscally conservative on stuff. We have $50 million in the bank, not doing anything at the moment. So 144 is not to be made lightly, but I also don't want us to say, well, we thought we could save 10 grand. If this group thinks it's important to have the consistent brand out of it.
The TDC board discussed this when we went through rebranding, and I think this was a foregone conclusion in the rebranding. And so I think the action should be to go out and find out what it's going to cost to rebrand those towers, and I guess we got to take it to the board. But for me, I'm very conservative as well. But this is something we discussed, and again, was I thought part of the rebranding package that this would be done.
It was, that may be true. I can say from where I sat that this was that elephant in the room because of the cost. And everybody's like, let's spend all of our time and attention on wayfaring and merch, and that's just ooh. And so that's why it's still sitting there. And that's not an excuse, but I'm glad to get a chance to talk about it.
It's going to take us 12 months to get it done anyway, so we might as well start now.
Yeah, we need to direct staff to.
Why didn't you make a
Can we make a
motion?
motion to get the estimate of the cost for repainting just the globe part and then the full thing with the stem? And again, is it just the one contractor we have to work through? And just to go ahead and get all of the information, vet it a little bit so that then come back to the committee with that information, and that will give us at least the information we need to be able to make an informed decision.
Can I have a second on that?
I'll second it, but I would say too respectfully to the conservatives that, you know, we've changed some of our own internal conversations about in-market branding. And I know the lovely Welcome to South Walton billboard just popped up where Cigars has lived for the last several years on 98, heading to the west. And, you know, that's a pretty hefty annual investment. And just like a billboard, this is an investment of equal stature. Some could argue greater stature because it is substantially larger than a billboard and much more visible because of its sightline. And I think to overlook this or not treat it as in-market branding, that should follow the consistency of all of the heavy lifting we've invested to get to the point where we are. To not treat it or update it, I think, is to paint your car and leave the hood the original color.
So I'm not proposing to amend that, and we'll listen to the tape and capture that effectively, I'm confident. But I will tell you that in addition to that recommendation that we'll pursue, we'll also obviously reach out to the Sandestin Homeowners Association because they were integral in inviting that to be done and participating in a supportive way at least. I'm not aware of any financial way or legal way, but I will also try to progress a little bit there to make sure that we're doing this with all parties. Yes, ma'am.
And forgive me, I'm not familiar with the other water tower. But
Yes.
there's a second water tower that has old script as well.
And I wish that I had managed to just go run up the road and snap a picture. That one I think cost $6,000 to $7,000. So I was really dealing with the big ugly first. So I think
I just can't place it in my mind.
painting over that.
But
Yeah.
we would include both of them together.
There'd be
right?
separate agreements. We could deal with it as a twin effort. Being that I hope that it's a $6,000 or $7,000 decision to get that updated, that was something that we would just handle.
Same contract.
The truth is, if it was much more than that, I'd just say paint over it because
Right.
you're basically seeing 65 or 70% magnolias and our brand somewhere hidden behind that. So, and they're only going to get bigger and they're only going to get more dense, so it doesn't have a lot
impact that
of
this
importance
one
to
has.
me.
Can we trim the magnolias?
I mean, they're the regional utilities and they planted them there. They're all landscaped, lovely, so it's not a prime location anymore.
It's kind of a thank you for coming to South Walton.
It could be,
You should say
and
thank
maybe
you for coming
somebody
to
would
South
say,
Walton.
well, we wanted to get rid of those trees anyway, so we can ask. But I'm not thinking that's going to become as prominent as we might like.
Do you think they planted the trees to obscure the paint?
It's because that was a fairly harsh spot there. It was sort of industrial, so the trees are
Well,
actually
the fact that none of
sensible.
us, very few of us even know where this tank is, kind of is a telling point.
Back to,
You have to go across the bridge. You have to go across the bridge.
However, yeah, if you drive north home every day, like I do, I see it every day.
Oh, okay.
And it might be a great opportunity to say thank you for visiting
And all
South
of our
Walton.
visitors see it when they
Well,
arrive
yeah.
and when they leave.
And when you're stuck in traffic on the way home.
Yes.
sorry you're stuck in traffic. But to Jim's point, it doesn't mean that, the top can't be wrapped with a thank you and the brand isn't as just dominant as it currently is. And so it's no harm to
Okay.
try to
I'd like to
amend.
amend
Yes.
that we include the cost of the tank as
Get
well,
information out of it. Yep,
and present it at
That's
the
fine.
same time.
that's fine. All right, so you had a motion and a second. I don't know if there's any public comment.
Any other discussion, public or committee-wise on that?
Thank you. Vote.
All those in favor, please say
Aye.
aye. Those opposed, say no.
Thank
Okay,
you.
it's unanimous, it passes.
Thank you. Before we get off of out of home, to Richard's point, he's seen it before I do. We have not been able to acquire the high traffic, high target entry point billboards as we discussed with you, but you gave us recommendation to go forward and get at least one up someplace and to start that. So I hope you all get a chance to see it, and it has a very simple purpose, which is you're in South Walton. It's not trying to sell you anything, it's not trying to accomplish 4 or 5 other things with 6 seconds. So I think I'm going to be happy with it, but I'll have to drive by before I say
Tell us
that.
exactly where it is.
It is if you are eastbound coming out of Sandestin beyond the 40a exit, which is the downer part of it, but before you get to the Gulf Place 393, right? It's in that.
And it's facing towards the east. So you're traveling west, you'll see it. It's on the left-hand side. It's the second billboard after the 393-98 intersection.
So it was.
So we won't see it when we leave here if we're heading back west because it's down a little further.
Correct.
So it was a reasonable amount of
That's
money.
393.
We'll be almost certainly under budget because we've not been able to obtain enough to expend our whole budget. So it was a relatively easy decision to start and to get something up. The other out-of-home update is Sunshine Shuttle has continued to seek a way to be part of solutions in South Walton, and they met with us and were invited to present at the last marketing committee meeting, and they opted out, said they did not have enough time to make the presentation that they wanted. They've met with us again, I guess it's been 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and were invited to present to this group today, and said that they did not have enough time to do so. They are going to, I understand, try to address the BCCN or the TDC directly. They truthfully, I saw some significant efforts in trying to have a marketing presentation or marketing proposal, not an operational, not a facilities, not an investment. So I thought that it might have been interesting to get there, but it continues to be a bit of a struggle to be, without being too harsh.
If I may, I didn't realize that we had actually approved. I thought with that the billboards were on hold.
Oh, sorry. Billboards?
Apparently, the billboards, we did agree to get billboards.
You're talking about
The in-market billboards.
Yes.
We did.
Well, we did.
It is a
it became available.
And when we talked about it, it is a budgeted item that went with the full budget line item to do this, and that was completely approved all through the area. So we didn't revisit it because we don't revisit things that are in approved budget that are line items.
Okay.
But
What's the contract period on that billboard?
I don't know if I know that off the top of my head, Lauren.
It's a year.
Yeah.
So then what's the difference between a rolling billboard and a fixed billboard?
That would all fall in the out of home to me, which is kind of why I was bringing it up. I would say that, and we're happy to share the actual dollars and cents with you of what the investment is for the fixed billboard and what the eye's on, and there's really no comparison to any number that we've seen with sponsored RATs.
Okay.
I mean 10x, 15x, 20x difference
I
in those
understand.
two things. So, yeah. And we do still have a couple backup contracts on billboards that are entry point, and so if those ever do become available, you've arrived in South Walton is the goal that we all had originally. Yeah. So the only other thing that I guess it's fair to update backwards is the TDC Council, you can correct me if I'm wrong, did ask county to confirm with Attorney General's office about the use of dollars for transportation-related efforts, and it was clarified for a second time that if the TDC decided to have a transportation program, that it is an appropriate use of money. It is not an appropriate use of money to have any partnership co-effort for the operation of a tram, which is why, in my opinion, you're really back to simply a marketing services, visibility impact and such. But there was some confusion about what happened, but that absolutely has been clarified. That
Did we do the shuttles from back and forth, the county? Did they do that, any of that?
no.
Okay, from outside parking lots to?
No, Sunshine actually provided that service, I believe, for Seaside staff. They did a shuttle service from South Annex to the town for
But the county was
scheduled.
also looking at doing that.
It's been talked about, and there's still property that's being considered, and the diligence on that's ongoing, I guess is the best I can say.
It'd be great to see their numbers of how many people actually ride on those too, I guess whenever they do have their ducks in a row.
Total ridership last year was 6,000 trips, and so, period. So that you and me ride down to a restaurant and we ride back to our apartment, that's 4. So 6,000 was the Sunshine's reported traffic for season
So those
2014.
are unique visitors or
Right.
unique riders.
Right.
So that's the other tough thing as a fledgling program. That's almost immeasurable when you're looking at what the actual traffic
But
is.
you're talking about, that's running one trolley.
One trolley
100
only.
days.
Yeah. And so the proposal is, I don't know if I get it right, 2, 4, or 6 trolleys potentially has been bantered around for 100 days. But I think to clarify again, last last thing maybe worth mentioning, is even if this organization said we really want out of home on public transport, you're probably going to an RFP to say who is available to provide this service to us, and then it's back to competitive bid, whether 654 Limo, who's been in this room, or any other entity says they have a service that can provide those impressions. Okay? That was out of home. Next item is research that hopefully you had a chance to glance. As the time is whisking by, I'm going to try to scan, and you can stop me where you need to. We have 2 new studies that are out. The value of visitors to Walton County in 2015, obviously Downs and St. Germain work that's done for us. I will say that I think this is the most substantial piece of research that's been done in 7 years. And I'm not sure that I would say the research that was done 7 years ago or 14 years ago is anywhere near as seemingly representative to me that this is. So big numbers here. I don't think going through every page is going to do this group any good at the moment, but you're talking about 2.86 billion is the number. What I do want you to know, anytime you read this or anybody asks you about it or you have a conversation, I will tell you that this is the most conservative math that could be done. Every time we were faced with, well, we could easily say it's $700 million in impact from lodging, but we have confirmation that it's 440 million. We went with the 440 million and not the 770 million, and that's my easiest example. So if we're trying to blow this up, 4.1, 4.2, 4.3 billion, 2.86 billion is the number, which is, in my opinion, unequivocal. And this goes beyond that, which is, I think, the community fascination is when you're trying to gauge that between us residents and the tourists. Where do we fit? Well, we're significantly outpowered, and this economy is reliant, every cent in this county that basically is has an origination point, 65% of that is tourism, 35% of that is local residents. So you can imagine how that equates to tax base and the county's ad valorem budgets and gas tax and an awful lot of other things. And the Haas study and the university study that was done 14 years ago, they made an attempt to do this, but I think Philip and his crew have done the best job ever, and puts us in pretty high cotton.
And the numbers fully support the TDC and the efforts of the TDC and what we are doing here today.
Yeah, I'm proud of that, and I think it supports what you are doing in here, and you are doing, and you are doing, because we say it all the time when we're unpopular or we're criticized or we make a mistake. At the end of the day, the working families of Walton County are still feeding their kids based on this industry. So pretty serious.
The real takeaways are things like the return on the investment. What comes in versus what is spent through the government, and the jobs that are created, and the not just the dollar spent, but the overall impact. I mean, this is really the best research study I've seen come out of the TDC. I was thrilled going through this.
Maybe 2 more numbers just to touch on before we move to the next one. Jobs you just mentioned, in the vicinity of 19,000 are estimated to be direct. Back to our conservatism, the state of Florida would tell you based on their calculations that it's maybe 32, 33, 35,000 jobs are related directly to tourism. Again, maybe it's a little different in the Miami market, maybe it's a little different in Orlando market. We work harder than everybody else is what I infer. But, and then 25,000 indirect jobs. And again, you think about 27,000 is the total population, men, women, children, grandma and grandpa for the entire South End. It goes back to, it is validation of, we are personality of the visitor more so than the community. Now that other subject is that continues to change. The second number is this one, which I think is possibly a scary number for some people, and maybe a negative that we have to calm people down. When you look at this, even I stopped and went, holy you know what. However, I think you also know that the occupancies in the peak seasons really aren't going to change that much more. If you're running at 86, 88, 92%, that's full in all intents and purposes. And so the 3.2 million people is very substantial. People are bringing their kids and they are in the bunk beds in the big houses, but a lot of that attendance, I think is fair to say, continues to be shoulder season where businesses are losing money today. And so do we need to continue to help, you know, this community and our industry? I think that's still a resounding yes. Even though if you just read that on the surface, you're like, well, geez, we've doubled and doubled again, we need to quit. It's when are they here, it matters more than how many of them are here. So.
Well, and the other thing, I mean, that is, you know, our quality of life, but our livelihood depends on tourism dollars coming to this market. I mean, say what you will, if that money goes away, I mean, what do we think is going to happen? A nice restaurant you like to go to every Friday night, and you know, it's like you got to. And I realize those are the types of things that we need to be as ambassadors, you know, communicating to the naysayers out there.
Yes, ma'am.
At one time, translated this into how much money goes back into the school system.
I think there was a line
there.
for that.
There's a line, and that's the most important.
It
I
is.
feel
number.
like that really touches the heart. So
It's a big number.
yeah.
Yeah, it's in there.
Education, health services, you really can dig down into.
I agree, Tracy, that touches everybody.
I mean, that's the number to shout out loud.
Absolutely.
60%, okay, of the sales tax, 62% of the sales tax comes from tourists. About 62% of the gas tax, 100% of the bed tax, 50%, 50.4 or 50.6% of the ad valorem tax. And that's the key number right there, because that's what pays for the schools, that's what pays for the operation of the county government. Because the first thing the naysayers tell you is, you know, these people are clogging our roads and they're not paying for them, and we should take TDT money to pay for, you know, sheriff's office, roads, whatever. Because they forget that the Hilton pays property taxes, and every one of those rental properties on those beachfront pay property taxes. And, you know, a $10 million house in Rosemary Beach pays it takes a hell of a lot of acres up in Defuniak Springs to pay the same ad valorem tax as it does for that $10 million house in Rosemary Beach. And so 50% of the ad valorem taxes of the property taxes of this county are collected from short-term rental properties. And that is the key, because then that when you tell people that, then they shut up about, you know, they're using my tax dollars and they're not paying for it. Well, actually, they are paying for it.
And that's on page 9 of the study where it breaks that down.
When I was going to reference 38, we talked about local option sales and gas tax. 18.9 million attributed to visitors, 11 million from visitors. So the end of the story there is without, and we know this, but it sounds like we're trying stronger on somebody, but without this industry, this county's bankrupt and can't live. So that sounds pretty dramatic, but I think we know that. But this type of document from a third party, when you have conversations with somebody, we will distribute this. It is available through the industry page. It's black and white. It's not an opinion. So, and it's the most conservative black and white we could come up with because we didn't want to be spending our effort arguing over, you might be 1% high on that. So please know that. Next piece that was available to you, and I think most of you probably have come across the lifestyle segmentation study at some point. So we've done PRISM, we've done lifestyle segmentation, we're back to a Nielsen's PRISM, it's all the same thing, basically. So a pretty substantial database here. We're talking about 27,000, 29,000 zips used, and Our clusters, Gulf State families, beachbound couples, Sunset seniors, gives you 73% of all of our consumers. And again, why do we care? Because we can assume certain things about winter circles and country squires and upward bounds, what media they digest, what they like to read, what their habits are, what they care about. And so this is back to that own self-check to make sure that when we're buying titles and we're spending dollars, we're spending it and putting it in front of as many of these people as we possibly can. So pretty good stuff. I don't think there's anything that would be considered a shock here, but it goes into some really extensive details if you're interested in digging a little deeper. And again, I would think a savvy business, would love the fact that we do this type of research because they probably wouldn't have time or resources to do it. So
I gotta say, I got a little giddy when I saw this because I haven't, been privy to one of these in a while, and it was really exciting to see. You're right, not that a lot has changed, but it's good just to validate and again to be able to make informed decisions about where our dollars are going.
I'm so sorry, I'm remiss
Yes.
by asking how long the meeting went, and next time I'll budget more time, but I have to run this time.
it is understandable. We have folks with children and what have you.
Well,
It's
next time I'll
4:30,
budget
5
more
o'clock
time.
is pretty
Okay.
common.
I should have asked, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. And again, Clay's 45 minutes was a fairly exhaustive chunk, but it is necessary, especially to make
But
sure
that
that you
is-
two have been
If
duly
that
warned.
scared you off, we'll see.
Yeah, she's really scared is actually what's happening.
No, thank y'all so much.
You're
My
welcome.
apologies.
We're glad you're
You'll
here.
be the chair next meeting.
That's what happens when you leave early.
Okay.
Moving on, next issue, meetings interactive. There's a brief here which you can read at your leisure, but the quick message is we are again using some more fencing to serve creative 2 venues, and these happen to be venues where there are group sales, missions, business associations, surveys, Louisiana Society of Association Executives, where we know there will be captive audience in these buildings, and so we are pushing meetings creative into their smart device while they are at these meetings. We may not be at all of these, but it's a way to digitally be opportunists. And so we've not tried this before, but you're talking about potential reach is very, very substantial, and overall it's a pretty affordable way to do it. So we'll give you some report back on that, but we're very much looking forward to that attempt. Let's see. I am excited to tell you that you may have seen that
Yes, it was exciting.
Mr. Schultz introduced Dune Lakes in South Walton to a national audience on CBS a couple of weeks ago.
Dune Lake at Topsail Hill Reserve State Park in South Walton, Florida.
Oh, yes, sorry. So those of you who've seen this, it's 2 minutes, 3 minutes of bliss. They did a really nice job. Spring O'Brien gets credit for opening this door. Carrie gets
Fabulous.
credit for converting this.
I was watching it live and I was like, what?
I know.
This is how they close the show? This is how they close the
The
show?
traditional close where they might be, in Yosemite and an
Yeah.
ice storm.
Yep.
It was South Walton and Dune Lake, so it was very, very
Perfect
flattering.
audience, perfect.
Yeah, it was. It was great. Of course, we repurposed it. It's on our website and did socials. Very friendly crowd.
Friendly crab waved.
And so, very thrilled. We just wanted to give you a little taste of some of that. I missed one of the E4E, which I was supposed to do before I got that. We are glad that we changed over some blood. It's just part of what this is designed to do with the 2 Sarahs having joined us. We do need to stop and consider our seats, our chair and our co-chair. I think there's value to turning it over. I think we've been lucky that we've had 2 people who are willing to do it and we've been able to rely on them, but I want to put that back to this body to talk about what they see for the next year and just to do our diligence to make sure that anybody who has interest anybody who wants out has an opportunity to do so.
I thought we recently, we discussed that.
It's just like two meetings ago?
It's been about 5. And
No
so,
way!
yeah, and so we did talk about that it was coming, but we were waiting until we got our new appointees, so officially.
So, first of all, is anybody else interested in it?
Don't everybody rush.
And then secondly, are you guys interested in staying in those positions?
Only if somebody's just dying to do it. Please, just step up. You will not hurt my feelings.
I think Marilyn does a fine job, so.
Me too. Tracy, are you
I'm happy being
happy in your role? Does anybody?
I'll make a motion that we maintain the current chair and co-chair for the marketing committee.
And I'll second.
We need a vote to get
All in favor?
She said all in favor. I think we have all in favor for her.
Aye. And opposed? And Tracy, I can officiate, unofficially, we have a nomination for Tracy to remain co-chair, or vice chair, I apologize. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Sure that's not Robert's rule, but we just wanted to make sure it was on
On the record.
clearly on record. So, monthly analytics, I am not even going to open the statistics, but I will open the summary. You guys have seen this before. We are talking obviously about, make sure I say this right, November would be the last one, December will be following here in another 10 days or so. Website traffic, we could probably have a long conversation about this. All I can do is tell you that we're continuing to give it thought and energy and time, and we know focus study is an option. We just redid all of the call to actions and the carousel images on the top of 25 key pages. So don't think that's going to be a magic bullet solution, but I also like to see the statistics after a little time goes by. And we will expect some uptick in visitation on the website after the holidays have been done. So continuing to try to keep an eye on that. The rest of the stuff, again, you have familiarity with it. The big markets, which is fantastic, where we've done some fall efforts in the Chicago's and the New York, generating attention. Mobile app behavior. We've managed to fix a few things. We've managed to change a couple of logos, some band-aids. We've talked about it in this group before. And again, there's always an opinion of let it die, we don't need it, versus we've invested in it, keep it alive. I can tell you that one of the things from my digital roadshow trip to California, which Sarah was on that as well, and the Visit Florida meeting at the beginning of December, is that next generation's affinity to apps is still extraordinarily strong, and that group is now, what, 37 years old, the millennial group, and so they really are starting to push their way into our demographic a little bit. They do have the kids, they are the ones taking their families to the beach, so at this point it's not costing us anything today to go forward with this, so we're not celebrating it, promoting it to drive it higher, but I think maybe it's okay where it is at the moment. Bigger fish to fry with the website, stickiness, and some of the other issues with Jason.
Can I ask a question on the geography, the top 10 cities? I'll always love to look at that. But nice to know Freeport, Florida is in there. But Rock Hill, South Carolina, do we have any idea as to what happened there?
I don't recall us discovering anything wonderful. Lauren, do you have any memory from that? I don't.
No, it's our coverage gets a lot of the southeast in terms of print publications because it's geo-targeted in that way. And then it's always it's appeared in the top 20 pretty consistently. So, but no particular insights, obviously.
South Carolina's in the top 20 consistently?
Rock Hill.
Rock Hill. Is that a Charleston verb or what is it? I don't even know what it
It's
is.
the suburb of Charlotte. North Carolina. They have lower taxes.
Oh, it's North
So
Carolina?
a lot of
It's
people
a-
live in Rock Hill, South Carolina, and commute to Charlotte, so they're in the broadcast area for
Got
Charlotte.
it, got it.
So it may be a little pocket like a Franklin or like a suburb of St. Louis where we see some traffic.
Because we don't do any active marketing over in that area, do we?
The Southern Living Regional
It
buys,
goes
the
to
Coastal
run,
Living
yeah.
Regional
Okay.
buys,
Okay.
it overlaps into that. And let's see, again, social, Instagram continues to show popularity. It's been that way for everybody, in the world for the last 2 years. I think we mentioned to you before, which is just in case we haven't, YouTube in the way when they advanced their platform was counting views a little differently, and so you would say it's not possible that we lost views. It was an analytic, statistical language thing, but nothing too scary there.
Hey, John, on YouTube, were we able to get South Walton tagged or even get permission to put that CBS video on our YouTube channel?
It currently is hosted by CBS, and so the uses we have are only just sending you to the CBS page. We didn't dare
Couldn't get them to tag us.
antagonize them at this point, but I think they actually were talking about coming back to this county for some other similar purpose after doing that, Morrison Springs possibly, so it's kind of nice. Tracking a few spikes. I don't know that there'll be a spike from the CBS Sunday morning thing, but I've got my fingers crossed and we'll see that in a report that's coming soon. It'll be interesting to use that as a test case. Again, you guys know that we're doing all sorts of organic, paid, promoted, click-through, digital, very, very good conversion in November. We're very pleased with that. The co-op programs, which we've had more participants with since we gave a $750 and a $1,500 option, which was on request of the TDC council member to make the digital buy a little bit easier. And so you're seeing good participation in that, and I think I've seen the December numbers, and we have already overserved, I think, every single partner in that category.
Is that bed tax collectors only?
Yes. Yes, and you've asked before, we haven't forgot you. I don't have a great answer.
Did I mention the U-turn up here at the?
Every time.
Start running out of room with those stinkies. You'll be better.
Yes, trade the shade. Again, I don't know if there's anything that jumped out that you want to talk about. We were continuing to be the sponsor of the wallpaper for the weather channels, branded backgrounds of that app, which is nice to change throughout the day. Pretty significant push-outs of messaging through Travel Spike and other providers on top of our six-figure list of options. So that is your analytics, and again, there was huge statistics behind that to back all that up. If you wanted to dig into that, I'd be happy to answer that question. I think this is essentially died way down, but it was a big hubbub at the beginning of December in that there was commentary about possibly changing the entire bed tax funding, money flow, support of the state, quite dramatic. I think it's been promised, and I actually haven't seen anything over the holidays, that's my fault, but that none of the other proposed changes to bed tax were still on a wish list, with one exception is in that you could fund public safety out of bed tax officially. Is a piece of a bill that may go forward. Again, you guys know we fund lifeguards. Are one of the only places left in Florida that's doing that. Even Okaloosa decided to start cutting that check out of ad valorem out of public safety. So I think Okaloosa would like to switch it back, which is where this is probably born in. But it was a full court political attack, frankly, when talking about changing everything in the state as far as funding, when really probably what was desired was a change to the public safety. So Even that though, up to 10% was being talked about, which, for a smaller county, maybe not so big a deal, but if you're in the Mickey Mouse's world, that's $16 million for public safety, potentially out of your marketing fund. So everybody expects them to be in the front line in resisting that. So you guys may have heard more about it than I have, but this had been saved a couple weeks ago to make sure that if it continues to be a hot topic.
Do you think all these other suggestions in here have now gone to the wayside?
That's the verbal. I don't know that I've seen any redrafted
No,
language.
last thing, I talked to him 2 weeks ago. 10% is going to be in there. Well, for us, would be the first, second, and fourth pennies. They're going to, he said that they would exempt out, there's 2 pennies, a beach nourishment penny and a convention center penny that people can collect, but we don't collect. Those would, because those go to fund specific projects, those wouldn't be included in the 10%. They're also going to keep in the right to somebody to sue and collect their attorney's fees. He had asked for treble fees, I think, in there, and it's just going to be straight attorney's fees because there is no punishment right now if the county commission says we do a legislative finding to use tourist development tax money for building a bridge across 98. If the bed tax collectors get upset, so what, even if they go and get a court ruling, there's no, so what? Okay, we won't fund it next time, but now they would have to pay, reimburse the TDT accounts for the funding of that bridge, and the people who brought the suit could get their attorney's fees. So there's a little disincentive, and God knows this county and Okaloosa County and May County, there's no shortage of people that would be willing to sue if they thought the TDT was being used. And there are a couple other little minor things that's.
What about the 40% being preserved?
No, the 40%, and the 40% for us, we're already at 40%.
Right.
So,
This was a protection.
yeah.
I didn't know.
But that might, he didn't entirely rule it out because there are some people, Jeannie was there at that meeting, there are people that want a guarantee for marketing because, and the other thing on the 10% is that would be total. So if you want to use it for lifeguards, you want to use it for police, you want to use it for code enforcement, you want to use it for animal control, that's fine. 10%, that's what you get to use. You don't get to use 10% for the sheriff, 10% for the fire department, EMS, and 10% because then it kind of defeats the purpose.
And just my opinion, but that it was such an aggressive political power play, talking about all of those dramatic things, that I think it maybe it was acceptable to them, but the reaction from people who aren't even in the tourism business, I received calls from some of the biggest, most influential folks in this county that said, do I need to turn somebody's desk over because this isn't acceptable to me and I'm not even in tourism. And so it woke up some folks that found it to be a little much. Bay County, TDC went on record and produced a statement against it. And so again, I think there's some valid, obviously we think there's some validity in caring for the public, but it really was hot topic where people were being extremely sensitive to the "are you kidding me" situation. So obviously we know politics, however, the fallback position seems to make a whole lot more sense now when prior just asking for what you wanted and you got shot down. So I had no idea. And then the last thing on this agenda, and if we'd had more time, I would love to give you a little bit more tease, but I've made it very easy for you guys to click. And all of the presentations that weren't protected and that we didn't have to sign a non-disclosure on are available here, from Adaro to Instagram to Facebook. My takeaways were short and sweet, I guess, that I'm really thrilled that Visit Florida is trying to forge friendships and partnerships and relationships and want to be beta sites for things that are being rolled out by Google. Not just Disney gets the first chance at the new cool technology. So I think that's going to happen, and Visit Florida will go back once or twice a year to some of these headquarters and others and really try to own those relationships, which I'm thrilled about. Adara, when we were there, it was very clear to me, and Sarah can chime in, she sat through all these as well. They have every intention on taking over the world, and I believe that they will do it. One of the most arrogant presentations I've ever sat through, about being polite, of course, but the two little insights I can share with you is that they fixed a problem that Philadelphia had when they didn't have enough rooms because some guy, the Pope, showed up, but we solved that problem for Philadelphia. And this little sporting event, the Olympics, was it, in Brazil, where they're not going to get their hotels finished? Yeah, we got that handled. And our team's right now in Paris because we needed to add a couple thousand to our inventory over there. So they'll be back tomorrow. It's no big deal. But the attitude was unlike anything that I've sat through, and they are, I think, now the #1 holder of inventory on Earth for properties. So about 85%, some 83% still international. But the growth in this country now is exceptional. They have 4 states prior to Florida that they were willing to collect and remit bed tax for, and they just added Florida as a 5th a month ago, which most people didn't think that was going to go over because some of the hotel lobbyists were ready to say we don't want them at all, let alone facilitate it. You know,
They're a booking engine?
They're booking engine, so they are remitting Florida bed tax. The counties. Every county now has to go to the Department of Revenue to try to get what's due to them. So they left the problem with the local and in-state, and they're like, we're out, we paid our tax, you can't solve that for us. But fast-growing hosts are retirees. And that typically those folks who have retired have moved to a lovely place and don't have their family with them all the time, and so they are renting the 3rd bedroom and the 2nd bedroom. And so you can see that model, especially for Florida, is one of the reasons it's on the top of their list of things to take over. But every stat that they have show that markets where they've increased their presence, visitation and tourism and traditional rooms and traditional rentals all grew. Nobody was suffering because these guys came into a market, which is interesting. Maybe comfort for some people because for others, it just strictly traditional inventories, obviously these guys are the enemy. But and then I just found it interesting that 1 out of 4 hosts have then gone and stayed with one of their clients, whether it was within Adara or not. It just has become that relationship situation, which tells you how comfortable a lot of people are with staying with strangers. I'm not sure I'm not home anytime soon, but. Really insightful, and I thought that they were very suspicious in some sense of why is Florida here and what do they want. But after they found out, I think that all we wanted to know is to understand and be better consumers and better partners. I think it can really blossom on a lot of fronts. So I felt lucky to have that. Did I miss anything that was big takeaway?
I think Airbnb was definitely the most interesting of the conversations that we had. I think they were literally scared when we got there, like all these bed tax collectors in one place, what's going to happen? But it was a very civil situation. And all the other, I mean, Facebook was amazing with the stuff that they're doing, and I wanted to stay at every place a little bit longer, except maybe a couple of them. But it was all very, and it's great that Visit Florida is so forward thinking that we can all be a part of that.
The other technical thing, which I think will be in all of our labs if it's not already, is the virtual 360 stuff. You've probably seen maybe a piece of it that GoPro has put out or Disney has put out, where you can be on a roller coaster and your phone has the mercury bubble is showing you 360 without headgear, without any apparatus. And so they're going big time into that. And right now, there's still not an opportunity for consumers to buy into that very affordably, but it is coming fast, and it's probably, if it's not come out, this week, it's coming fast. Disney was their first big client that they were divulging, but the ability to share a product like we have with somebody that's a long ways away, that virtual, we've already scrubbed up a brief to see, how long do we have to wait for it to become more affordable, or is it worth whatever they're charging today, to consider that as part of our digital package. So please, I would really urge you just to blow through some slides, and if there's anything that catches your eye, we'll try to remember what they told us. But that was the blaze through as fast as I could update.
We're short on time, but
Yes.
I did have a question about an item in the connection.
Yes.
They talked about, I know that it's the regular TDC plan, but it said crazy words like review amended ordinance establishing bed tax collection, and it had like listed all these different line items.
I think you are talking about the TDC plan, which has the most generic name ever, but it is literally this sheet of paper, which is required to be filed with the state every 2 years, that says basically we are an entity that's the official collector of development tax, and we use it for these things. So there's 6 categories: beach nourishment, beach maintenance, product development, which is basically shoulder season, lifeguard, just shoulder season, administration, visitor center. And those numbers are big numbers, millions, 7 million, 9 million. It's literally the old proportions extrapolated based on new collections, so that it is on file with the state, characterizing what this county's take is. And so no change to priority, to proportioning, to priorities.
The way our TV thing.
If it was 7 million before and we've gone up 20%, it's now 8.4 million. So it's just required to go through all the process. The TDC has approved it to be sent to the BCC. The BCC is required to have a public hearing because it is an ordinance, an on-file ordinance that has an official number, and then that's just simply filed in Tallahassee. There was a period of 2006 to 2010 that it wasn't done. And so we went back and said, oh gosh, every 2 years we have to give you this piece of paper, and it was done 2 years ago.
So it's not something like this where it's an ordinance and these lines are being crossed out and they're changing things, and that's the way it read to me when I looked at the little thing.
That's the one that there'll be a public hearing about. Pretty straightforward. Now there is a January 12th, 2 o'clock public workshop that has to do with beach vending and the ordinance and the rules and regulations regarding the 50% rule and the storing at the toe of the dune and upland property owners' ability to say nay or yay on vending in front of their view, whether it's their property or not. And so that is part of the January 12th, 2 o'clock. It precedes for 2 hours where we expect public comment and vendors to have issues. And so some of that stuff might seem a little crossword. That's something I can think of.
Okay.
But that's straightforward. The numbers are what they were. They're just
I just want to make sure they
expanded.
won't be opening here.
Where's that meeting?
That's Annex South Annex at 2 o'clock, which precedes the 4 o'clock normal BCC meeting.
Any update on Southern Living? Anything we do that?
Southern Living is on their way here as part of the big 50th anniversary. They're going to do 5 video features of local musicians while the festival is going on. Not all of them are necessarily performing. Forrest Williams is a perfect example. He will be featured, but he's not in the lineup. Haven't heard basically anything, don't get any response from 40a songwriters anymore. So we're waiting like everybody else to get the grid to see who's playing where. But some pretty intense days with the cameras. You're still in a possible we need your help mode, but right now we're hoping to send them a shot list and for them to bless it and really work out of some central locations where artists come to those locations and we can knock out a couple things, because trying to be in 15 places is probably unreasonable. But super excited about the 50 list coming out late this month. And then those videos will come out over a series of months. So February, March, April, there'll be video content being released by Sunday Living featuring us. And in every effort, it's not just about a musician and songwriter. It's then talking about we're lucky that we have the forest, or we're lucky that we have cuisine, or we're lucky that we have artists, and that's why the musicians love being here. And so expanding it to lifestyle, which is super beneficial, in my opinion.
I'd like to open it up to the public. Is there anyone that would like to ask a question or make a comment?
Are all those on the website, about the old.org site, but now the .com?
What things?
All the segmentation study and the things from the California trip and everything?
They're all accessible through Granicus, being that this is the first time that we've gone live. So just like a TDC meeting where all of the attachments are available through the agenda link. But the research, once it's gone to the TDC, then that's published, but it's behind the password protected site the research is. But this is all now part of Granicus record.
So is this public record at this time, the research and everything?
It is. Again, we don't really go running around waving our strategy to everybody, but it's accessible through a little bit convoluted means today.
I think the economic impact study should be a public forum. I think those are great numbers.
Yes, I sent that to the commissioners and the council as a special send 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And there's still a lot of discussion about, how do we get anybody else to listen? But there's so much good follow-up information. I mean, I've been quoting the last one from 4 years ago repeatedly, so I hope this is something that becomes a bit of the Bible and the go-to for everybody.
Yeah.
So I think that it will be used highly. But there's still possible tactical things we might do. Hoping to still get the TV to pick it up.
Absolutely.
And I will say that 40a has been extraordinarily cooperative lately and inclusive of what they're trying to do with their southwall.com becoming a news site, with their 40a radio be willing to carry whatever messages that we consider to be community beneficial. So I'm very happy with that. Cooperativeness is nice.
Any other public comments? Okay, what about committee member?
Where are we, what's the status of new executive director?
Believe 2 Tuesdays ago, I guess, time's flying with the holidays, 7 members were named to review the applications and basically rank top considerations. Jim, I can't remember if your name was on that list. 7?
Yes. First meeting's on the 14th of January of that committee.
I remember seeing Gus Andrews' name and Feldman, Pam Avra, Stan Sunday, Melissa, who's finance, and LMA, who's also HR. So that's a pretty comprehensive, neutral group to try to quantify experience. So it's not going fast, but it's going.
Is there a projection on how long that process is going to take?
I don't think so. I mean, I think just from history, if the first meeting's the 14th, then it's got to go back to BCC. BCC's got to do interviews, make an offer, notices. I mean, is that 100 days?
We do have interviews tomorrow with the director of admin. That's a little faster.
Yes. A little faster, yes.
Well, if there aren't any other comments from this committee, I just wanted to remind you that you will need to fill out your sunshine form here and turn it in. And as well, please note that our next meeting will be March 1st at 3 o'clock in this same room, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, if there are no other comments to be made, I adjourn this meeting.
And I will make another housekeeping to reinforce what Clay said. Microphones are live. This is going out until we go through some process to turn it off. Not that you ever would, but it's a great reinforcement to realize that you are on stage and you'll continue to be on stage. Duly warned.
Asking to the teacher.
Thank you all.
Asking to the teacher.